Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about why Apple Music is still my favorite music streaming service to this day. Now, yes, will I maybe down the line just completely ditch Apple Music and streaming services altogether and go to like Jellyfin or something like that in order to host my own like local service and play stuff off of there? Yeah, but for the time being, I'm going to at least stick with Apple Music for now because it's not super expensive because I have a student discount. But I have used a lot of music streaming services in my time. I think I started out with Spotify and then I used Tidal and then I went to Apple Music, but I've also used Deezer and Qobuz. So I've tried out a lot of different music streaming services. And I was really debating on whether or not I was going to ditch Apple Music entirely and go to Qobuz, but I ultimately decided against it, mainly for two big reasons. For one, Qobuz's interface, I just don't think is as nice as Apple Music, especially when it comes to album recommendations. I just feel like Apple Music is a lot more tailored towards me now that I've used it for so long. And just generally, I think just the album recommendations are a little more accurate. But also, just generally, I think just Apple Music is just a little easier to navigate. But the biggest reason why I just went back to Apple Music and didn't go to Qobuz is because of library size. Because I listen to a lot of Japanese artists, some obscure, some not obscure, and even the semi-decently popular ones, a lot of those are just not on Qobuz, which is really, really annoying. Now, I understand that they're growing their library size and all that, and they're a sort of new streaming service, but even still, man, like it's really, really small of a library size compared to Apple Music. So yeah, that's the biggest reason why I'm sticking with Apple Music, because they just have a ginormous library size, and basically every single Japanese artist that I want to listen to is on Apple Music, besides maybe one or two. So yeah, that's the biggest reason why I like Apple Music. But another reason is these tiny little small features that I can't really find on a lot of other streaming services. A big example of this is the ability to delete songs from an album. Please, other streaming services, add this. I don't know why no other streaming services has given you the ability, besides Apple Music, to delete individual songs from an album, especially bonus tracks. Like, goddamn, I do not want to listen to bonus tracks most of the time on an album. So I just straight up want to delete it. But a lot of the time, there's no way to do that. Because again, no other streaming service besides Apple Music allows you to just delete songs at will from an album, which is really, really annoying, especially when that album doesn't have a version that omits the bonus track. So again, it's just really, really annoying. So I really like that Apple Music gives you that ability. But also, I really like that Apple Music also gives you the ability to upload custom albums. And I recently found out about this because I recently downloaded the Queenston's album Figurehead, I think it's called. And I'm really, really looking forward to listening to it. But I've just heard it's a really, really good drum and bass album. And I've been getting back into that genre recently. But it's not on streaming services. I can wholly see why that the creator or the artist doesn't want to put it on streaming services. That is completely reasonable. But I personally just want it to at least be on Apple Music because it's convenient and I like using Apple Music. So I tried to upload a custom album to Apple Music and it worked. Eventually, I will say that using my Mac, for whatever reason, it didn't sync with my Apple, with the rest of my Apple library for whatever reason. It worked on my Mac, like locally on my Mac. It showed up once I, put all the metadata in there, and I was off to the races on my Mac. But again, on every other platform, like on my PC and my phone, it just wasn't there. So I had to actually just straight up upload the entire file, not the file, the folder of all the songs to Apple Music and then individually input all the metadata. So I had to say what song was on what album, what track it was listed as, and all that. And it was really, really tedious, I will say, but I eventually got there, and hey, now it works. So that's really, really cool. And I also like that you aren't restricted with what files you can upload, except for FLAC. I don't think you can upload FLAC, but you can upload like WAVs, MP3s, basically almost every other file format besides FLAC, which is not like the biggest deal in the world because I like FLAC file, or not FLAC. Well, I like FLAC files, but I like WAV files as well. So yeah. as I said, these are the big reasons why I'm sticking with Apple Music. Again, just interface is really simple, really clean, and I find that the album recommendations that it gives is actually pretty good. Also, just the library size is really, really good, really huge. A lot of artists that I really like are on there that aren't on a lot of other streaming services, especially like Tidal and Qobuz. They really need to work on their library size. And also, just generally, I like having lossless music at least as an option. I will say, in order to remedy this weird like skipping issue that I was talking about, I've had to download a lot of albums, and it has eaten up a lot of my storage. But I think it's at least a little worth it in order to get rid of this, again, skipping problem. I don't know why Apple Music, out of every other streaming service, just wants to keep playing the song without, even trying to buffer it. It keeps just trying to play it even with the spotty connection, instead of just, like every other streaming service where it just buffers and waits for the internet to catch up. I don't know why Apple Music just doesn't do the same. I really wish they would do so, because that's the biggest problem that I have with Apple Music. It's just the weird, shoddy connections that I sometimes have, where it will just randomly skip a little bit, like a very minor amount in a song, but still enough to be kind of annoying and, not super fun, especially with an album that I've listened to countless times. But besides that, that is basically going to be it. As I said, I'm going to be sticking with Apple Music for a little bit, and that is, yeah, going to be it, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.